Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is about my experience with IVF. The reason why I'm making this video is because at the time of me going through IVF, I didn't actually have anybody's personal experiences really to listen to. I mean, I had forums to look on and whatnot, but there wasn't anyone that I could connect with and tell me their experience, so I knew what I was up for. I mean, you can Google things and you can hear things from your doctor, but sometimes all you want really is to just hear other people's experiences, so it makes you feel a little bit more at ease with the situation that you're about to face. So I'm just going to start at the beginning. How I found out that I needed to go through IVF was that I wasn't falling pregnant. I was with my partner at the time for about 2 years, and we were actually trying during this time, and I just couldn't fall pregnant. So I went to the doctor and I explained to the doctor my concerns about not being able to fall pregnant. So I had things like ultrasounds and blood tests, and I even went to the extent of having an operation. So I had a laparoscopy, and after the laparoscopy that I had blocked tubes. Not actually blocked, but they were really narrow, so I wouldn't actually be able to fall pregnant naturally because the egg wouldn't be able to travel from my ovary down to where it needed to be without being damaged or squished. And I actually have ovulation pain every single month, so every month that I ovulate, I can actually feel the pain. Like, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, and today is that day, so I'm actually in a bit of pain sitting here talking to you guys about it. The specialist told me that I'd have a 5 to 10% chance of ever falling pregnant on my own, and I have actually fallen pregnant on my own a couple of times, but these things happen, and I'm just so grateful for the kids that I do actually have. It makes you so much more grateful when you go through an experience like that you already have even just one child. Like, if I could have only had one child, like, I'm so grateful for the whole 3 of them. But if I was only able to have one child, I would have been so happy, because since having IVF, I've actually spoken to a few people that have been through it or that are going to go through it and that are going through it and aren't falling pregnant and spending thousands and thousands of dollars, because over years and years of trying, it can be very, very expensive. And after having my second child, I was actually out at dinner with him. I think he was about 5 or 6 days old, and the lady came up to me that was serving us, and she said to me, "Oh, your son's so beautiful, you know, blah, blah, blah." Things that people usually say to you when you just first have a baby and they're newborn, and they are so cute and squishy and, oh, so gorgeous. But yeah, she came up to me and she just said to me that she had actually tried IVF, and I said, "Oh, funny that, because he's actually an IVF baby." I said, "He's my second child, and both times, you know, it worked first go." And she's like, "You are the luckiest person that I have spoken to about this," because she, at the time of having this conversation, the lady was about, I don't know, I'm going to say 40s, and she had just given up. She told me that in her 20s, her and her husband, partner, whoever he was, had tried IVF so many times that it drained her whole house deposit. Like, she had a house deposit saved up, and, you know, they were going to buy a house, and she decided that having a child was more important than buying a house at the time, which is fair enough. I mean, I did it myself. I don't own my own house. But it didn't, in saying that, it didn't cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm talking a house deposit, and at the time was about, you know, $100,000, she told me. And it's really sad to think that, you know, you can spend all this money, and it's not about the money. I mean, it is, but it's not. But to keep trying and trying and trying, it's just really sad to get no result. So yeah, she had just never fallen pregnant, and it's so sad, and it broke my heart, and she actually stood there and cried, and I felt so bad. Like, you kind of feel guilty for having a baby when you shouldn't feel guilty for having a child. But I know if I was in her position and I wasn't falling pregnant, I think I'd be really envious of the person who, you know, had just had two children using IVF, and both times it's worked first go. I mean, even when I was sitting in the clinic about to have my transfer of my baby, of my embryo, sorry, there was a lady in there, and she was telling me that she had 25 eggs collected, and I think only 7 of them were viable. So 7 of them got used, and then during the process of creating the embryos, I'm pretty sure only 2 or 3 made it. Now that really sucks, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I'm just going to tell you about the process of IVF first, because some of you, obviously if you're looking up a video like this, you are thinking about IVF or you're going through IVF and you really want as much information as possible. So I'm going to try and give you that information in as short as I can. So first of all, you go to your GP and you just get a referral for a IVF specialist or a gynecologist. Obviously you have to be tested by that gynecologist for him to know that, yep, okay, she's not falling pregnant for this reason. So I did have the laparoscopy beforehand and I had all of the information about that and the results. So it was pretty straightforward when I went to the specialist. I don't know if anyone's already been told that they can't have babies naturally or they need IVF, but that was my process, and I'm just going to tell you my personal experience. So after seeing the specialist, I still had to have blood tests and I still had to have an ultrasound, because he just pretty much had to double check that what the doctor had said matched up to my results. So I went through the ultrasound and the blood tests, and I went back about a month later and he said, yep, okay, I'm going to send you for a consultation with the clinic. So I chose the clinic then, and I went to Westmead IVF clinic, and I swear by them, and I actually know so many people now that have been there and they've helped and they've actually fallen pregnant, and I know they're little babies, and it's just a good feeling to know that other people have had a baby at the same clinic as you. And yeah, so next up you go to the clinic. So obviously I went to Westmead IVF, and then they tell you that you need to track your period. So like if you're halfway through your cycle or whatever, they just tell you to ring the clinic on the first day of your next period. So I can't remember when that was, but I called them, and sometimes they can fit you in and sometimes they can't. I was lucky all 3 times. They were able to fit me in, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of other women that are trying IVF and they can't double book appointments and whatever else. So if 100 girls are starting their period on the same day and they're trying to do that cycle, then you're probably going to have to miss out if those other 100 women have called before you. So as soon as you get your period, you call the clinic, and then you go in there and they do a blood test. The blood test is just for hormone levels and to see like where your hormones are. I think because they need to know what medication to put you on and how much of it you need to be on. So for everyone it's going to be different, obviously. The medication I had, I can't remember the name of it, but the medication was given by needle. I had to do it myself at home every single day for, I think it was roughly around 2 weeks, so 12 to 14 days I think. But then again, that depends also on your hormone levels. So after a week of being on the medication, you start going for blood tests every second day. So I live in Western Sydney, probably half an hour from the hospital, so it wasn't too much of a hassle for me. So every second day I would drive from home to the clinic, and then you just have to have a quick blood test, and then later on that day they'd call you and say, okay, no, it's not time yet to do the final injection. And then, yeah, so you just continue on, and then 2 days later you would go back, and if your hormone level increased dramatically, then they'll do an ultrasound to check on how good your eggs are growing, because the medication is to actually grow numerous eggs at the same time. Usually a girl only grows 1 egg per month per cycle, but in this case what the medication is for is so you can grow a few at a time. So they just do 1 egg collection, and they take all these eggs and try and fertilize all these eggs at the same time, because they can also be frozen afterwards, which I'll get to later on. So then when you actually do get to that point where they say, okay, that's enough of the medication, they book you in a date to have the egg collection, but you have to have one last needle, and this needle is about this long, and it's not fun, but it's all for a good cause, so it's okay. So you use that 36 hours before they tell you that you have to go into hospital. If you took it at 10 o'clock Friday night, you'll go in Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. You have to be there probably 8, 9 o'clock so they can get you prepped for surgery. It's just a minor surgery, it's just a minor procedure. What they do is they don't even knock you out, they just sedate you pretty much. It's a drug called midazolam that was used on me, I remember that. And pretty much you can either go to sleep or you don't go to sleep. But if you don't go to sleep, you kind of like in a daze, like you don't know what's going on and you don't remember when you wake up. Well, the first time that was the case, I went to sleep and I woke up and I was fine. The second time, I actually woke up during the procedure and I know exactly what was going on, and I could feel the pain and it was excruciating, and I pretty much screamed the hospital down. And later on in recovery, I asked the doctor if that happened, and he said, yeah, unfortunately you did feel quite a bit of pain and you woke up screaming and then you kind of just passed out. I hope that doesn't put anyone off, and it doesn't usually happen, but it just so happened that it happened to me. So yeah, while you're in having the egg retrieval done, your partner is in a different room of the hospital doing their thing. And then afterwards, yeah, obviously they just put the sperm and the eggs together and they form embryos in a little dish, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Like usually two people have sex and bam, you're pregnant. But in this case, it's very, very different. And it's a pretty special experience. I mean, there's always a downside of it. Like, you get really depressed on the medication that you're on. Well, I got really depressed on the medication that I was on, and it didn't mix well with me. So I was snappy and just in my own head constantly for 2 whole weeks straight, and then maybe even a little bit after. And I know I was, and they warn you about the side effects, and I always so happen to just get that bad side effect. But no matter what medication I'm taking, I always get the worst side effects possible. So after the egg collection, it's pretty much just a waiting game. So after egg collection, you'll wake up with a number on your hand, and the number on your hand represents the amount of eggs that were collected from you during the egg collection. Now my number was 5. So out of these 5 eggs, 5 embryos were created and 4 I think survived all the way to day 5. Now on day 3 you will receive a text message or a phone call from the clinic just to say, okay, this many have survived to day 3. Now if you have less than 3 make it to day 3, then you'll have a transfer on day 3, just so they make sure that at least one is going to make it to day 5. If you don't have that transfer on day 3 and none of them make it to day 5, then you've pretty much just, went through a whole cycle and went through the whole process for nothing. So if you have more than 3 embryos make it to day 3, then they will let you continue to day 5. The only difference between a day 3 and a day 5 transfer is I think that they can tell a little bit more about the day 5 embryo. So I'm sure they can tell which one's a better quality embryo to transfer back, so that has the best possible chance of resulting in pregnancy, which is the ultimate goal in the end. So on the night of day 4, I got a text message from the clinic just to say what time I needed to be there the next day to have the transfer. And then I went to the clinic on day 5, and all they do is just pop you up on a bed and prep you as if you were about to have a pap smear. And it's pretty much the exact same thing, except they're not taking a swab from you, they're just putting your embryo into your uterus. So then they'll just put up a photo on a screen that'll be somewhere in the room that you are, and it's just got your name on it, and they'll just make sure that that's you and that that's the number that is on your IVF card that you get given when you start IVF, and then you'll see your embryo. So then after that, it's another waiting game. Of course, you've got to do a pregnancy test just to check if you are pregnant. So they'll give you a packet of 2 pregnancy tests, and you are supposed to do one 2 weeks after the date of transfer and then 2 days after that day. So then they'll just book you a 7-week ultrasound. This early ultrasound is just to check that you're not having an ectopic pregnancy and the pregnancy is going well for you. If you don't know what an ectopic pregnancy is, it's actually a pregnancy that occurs in your fallopian tube, and usually this has to be removed. So then after the 7-week ultrasound, you just get discharged from the clinic, and then you just go about it like a normal pregnancy. So yeah, I think I've pretty much covered all the questions that I would have wanted to ask going through the experience myself. If I haven't though, just leave a comment in the comment box down below and I'll write back to you. Also, as always, just give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it and if it was helpful to you. And if you haven't already, just go over and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And I'll see you guys in my next video, which should be up in a couple of days. Bye guys!